everyone, welcome back to Brad's Bioactive Builds, where I do step-by-step, do-it-yourself, naturalistic reptile enclosures. In today's video, you're going to see what this whole build has been centered around, and if it works, it's going to be the most epic thing I ever built. And if it doesn't, well, let's just say I spent a lot of time, energy, and effort building my dream Paludarium, only to see it get demolished. Plus, a special guest might just show up. Enough said, let's get into the video. Make sure you catch up on the whole series where I build this enclosure from scratch. I'll link the playlist at the end of this video. Alright, let's go. In this video I'm going to be mainly working on the aquatic section, for what's to come. I drilled a hole so I can make water changes very easy. Installed a bulkhead. On the back side of the tub I added a PVC union that will act as a quick release if I ever need to replace it. Attaching a hose to that will lead to a ball shutoff valve. I have two in place, one acting as a failsafe. I also have an Olasi pond vac for when things get serious. Both of these will go to my sump pit and eject out of my house. Covered the bulkhead in epoxy. It's important to notate that earlier I roughed up the tub as much as possible, so epoxy would bond to it better. And started lining the tub with Polygem Epoxy 307 Lite. I did the side walls and the back wall. I'll go ahead and leave the front for later on in this video. Installed a ledge for where my exterior canister filters are going to dump out onto, creating a small waterfall. Simply using spray foam to attach it, wedging it into place. Added a few more ledges and carved them down. The video before this goes in detail on how I do this. Built up spray foam for more character and definition. Carved it down. Covered them in epoxy. Went ahead and painted it. Alright, now for the most stressful part of this build, cutting out this viewing window. I had to frame it out to reduce the flex when adding water. Seeing that this was going to be a floating corner piece, I had to figure out a way to make it secure as possible. To overcome this obstacle, I had to add a 45-degree brace, along with some other methods I'll show coming up. Started cutting down 2x4s to fit. I also had to cut some down the middle so it would line up with the top header and the bottom frame. Imagine, create, and build. I love that the most about designing naturalistic enclosures, taking that idea and making it happen. Clamped in the top header to the frame, traced it out. That way I knew where to make my marks when cutting out the window. Did the same for the bottom. Squared up the sides. There's no turning back now as I drill this hole. Cut along the lines I made earlier, being fully committed for what I'm about ready to do. I put so much work into this build so far, so I'm really hoping that this works out. And there it is, the start of the viewing window. I can't wait to see the fish and martins swimming around freely. Took my top header from before and secured it into place. Honey the supervisor had to stop in and check up on my work to make sure it was going as planned. Added my bottom 2x3 and screwed it home. Mocked up the 2x4 that will be sitting on top of the 2x3. Scored it so I knew where to make my cut. And ripped it down the line I just made. Put it into place. Double checked to make sure everything was running level. Once confirmed it was level, screwed it down. Covered the holes with wood putty. Sanded it down. Used a hole saw so I can recess my bolt head into the top header. Drilled my pilot hole and added my 5/16 bolt. Using a nylon lock nut. Prepping my studs with a pocket hole jig. Squared everything off and fastened it to the structure. As I usually overbuild, I added some more 2x4s to reduce the flex. Cut down a 19/32 sheet of plywood. Clamped it down so I could mark out a hole for the viewing window. Cut out the hole for the viewing window. This portion here will be for the next video coming up. Check to make sure everything lined up. This part was a little tricky. I had to measure out every single stud. I'd take those measurements, apply it to the sheet of plywood I just cut. That way when I matched it up to the front of the enclosure, it would screw in to the frame. My measurements landed perfect. I'm glad I went with a thick piece of plywood, tying it all together, making it more structurally sound. With the front of the enclosure all built out, I started adding epoxy, working myself to the front viewing window. I did add epoxy about 3 inches to the front of the tub. If I were to do it again, I probably would have left it about 4 or 5. It would have made these next steps a little bit easier. Detailed it all in using a fake rock silicone stamp. Now to add my 1/4 inch Lexan for the viewing window. I wanted to round out the edges, taking away stress points from the corners. At this stage of the game, I figured it'd be a good idea to hit up Uncle Mike. Hey, what's up, brother?
Hey, what's going on, my man?
Oh, same old, same old. I gotta say one thing, Mike, dude. The first time I came over by your place and I saw that Mertens build, I fell in love with it, dude. It was by far the most epic thing that I've ever seen, and I knew one day I was gonna want to try and build something like that. And today is the day where it gets a little stressful because obviously, we've been in conversation up to this point. I'm just calling for some tips and tricks. It's more or less like the inside and the steps that you took. So if you can kind of walk me through that process.
And of course, what you got going on there is beautiful. Now with the water window, that's where things got a little hairy. So just talking a little earlier, we came up with a few maybe steps. We're roughing the surface so your sealers and your glues have something to hold to. You're going to run a lot of silicone, heavy bead, not just at the edges, not just at the seams. You're going to want to make sure you get the seams good, but I always back off of the seams so it's not beyond it doesn't come out from underneath the glass. You're going to already have a T made out of a 2x4 that goes from the back wall to the front center of your Lexan.
Cut back the plastic protector. I did want to leave the viewing portion covered just in case I got material on it while I was working.
Roughing the surface so our epoxy and our sealants and everything sticks better.
Anytime I sanded or roughed up surfaces, I went ahead and vacuumed to clean up all the debris.
Then you're going to want to get a product, I think it's called G-Flex. It's a 2-part clear epoxy, and it has flex to it, which is really good because you don't want something that's too rigid because you're going to have flex.
Oxidize the tub with a blowtorch, so G-Flex would adhere to it better.
Or the G-Flex, and you paint your bead around the seam.
To feather the angle between the Lexan and the tub, I used epoxy. That way fiberglass would make the transition and bend a little bit easier. Roughed it up for the same purposes as before.
You paint the G-Flex all on there so you got something for your fiberglass to stick to. Then you're going to put your fiberglass into place and you're going to push it in, and it's going to catch to the G-Flex. Now, once it gets all in there and you got your fiberglass completely soaked G-Flex. So you got G-Flex, fiberglass, more G-Flex.
I ended up using 2 layers of fiberglass. Scuffed up the G-Flex to get rid of the smooth surface. Remove the plastic sheeting, this way I can tape off what I didn't want covered up more accurately. Continue to use the T-brace to simulate what water pressure would look like.
And then do your polygem Zoopoxy over the rest of it.
And a lot of Zoopoxy I used. I really wanted to reinforce the front, making it as strong as possible to reduce any bowing. I'm really looking forward to seeing what this is going to look like as I look in from the outside. To use an extra waterproof sealant, I used silicone to attach the Zoopoxy to the Lexan. Pulled the tape while the silicone was still wet, and then waited for it to cure. Then I added a detail coat, hiding the silicone. Tied it in like before. Pulled the tape while the Zoopoxy was still wet to get a nice clean line around the viewing window. I consider you to be a mentor in, the DIY game, because you have shown me a lot of tips and tricks, a lot of information and knowledge and trials and tribulations that you've had over the experience and years of you just building naturalistic enclosures. So when I hear somebody with that much knowledge, man, I take the cotton out of my ears and I open them and I listen. So I've seen your build and, the work that you've done with it, and it's proven and true that it works, right? So
Absolutely.
if I hadn't seen that before, I would not be attempting this right now. So, I got faith in the Mike's Monitor's way, and I'm sure it'll
I appreciate
be a
that, bro.
success.
Yeah, I'm sure it's going to be a success. And yeah, you keep me posted every step of the way. I love watching your stuff. I really appreciate you looking up to me and calling me for this advice. And man, you do beautiful work. It's an honor to work with you, Brad.
Yeah, likewise, brother, man, likewise. I'd like to give a huge shout out to my Patreons. Your added support is super appreciated. And if you'd like to check out the full video of this phone call, check out my Patreon now, along with a lot of the behind the scenes content and extra perks. Painting in the rest of the work I just did, matching it to the rest of the hardscape. Spraying it with watered down black acrylic paint. Waited for it to dry, and then used the dry brush method using 3 different tones of matte acrylic paint. This is always one of the funnest parts of the build, when you really get to start to see your vision come to life. Added the skimmer for the drain. Silicone the gap between the Lexan glass and the tub itself. Smeared it for a nice clean finish, and pulled the tape. Alright, real talk and moment of truth. Time for the water test. I really hope this thing doesn't leak. Otherwise I spent a lot of time, effort, and energy building out my dream Paludarium. Let's hope for the best. While doing the water test, I gave everything a good spray down, getting rid of any debris, washing them away. I'll do the water test for about 5 days. If it's successful, I'll go ahead and drain it, fill it, drain it, and fill it one more time for its final fill. By my calculations, there's about 300 gallons in the water tub. This part was not only exhilarating, but intense. If something were to go wrong, that means I would pretty much have to start all over. But let me know down in the comments if you think this is going to hold water or burst out and leak everywhere. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. It really helps this channel continue to grow. For a full playlist on this series, check it out right up here. For the next video in the series, check it out right there. For some other videos you may like, check it out right here. Thanks for watching.